Cool. Yeah, so we're just going to start with a few introductions. We're all going to sort of introduce ourselves very briefly. Myself, I'm Nick. I'm a music producer, co-writer, songwriter, um, and mixing engineer, and I do a bit of sort of coaching and mentoring of people as well. Yeah, I've been sort of working freelance with lots of different genres, loads of amazing artists, including some people who are in this room. Um, and More recently, I've started to sort of do these slightly educational kind of things, where running webinars, building a community for you all to sort of connect with each other, and it's a really beautiful thing that's sort of growing from this. So I'm really, really grateful for you to all be here for that. Um, yes, and we have Laura Donohue. We are blessed, privileged with the presence of Laura Donohue. Would you care to introduce yourself, Laura?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. Nick, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I am a vocal coach based in Nashville currently. I've been here a while. I've been in Nashville about 30 years. And yeah, I'm a vocal coach, and also I call myself a performance coach. And not in a sometimes people are like, you mean, do you like teach people how to move on stage? And no, not, I'm not that kind of performance coach, more of like high performance, accessing our best performance. It's a really big part of what I do. And like Nick, I do some transformational coaching as a part of that work. And sometimes people come to me more for that, or what we could say the thinking part of the singing, which is a really, really, really big part of the singing. I'm sure I'm not telling you something you don't know already. And we'll be talking more about that today, no doubt. So I'm also a singer, and I still perform and I record as well. And I record myself a tiny bit. I told Nick I know just enough to get myself into a lot of trouble. And but my preferred way is to sing in a studio with a fabulous engineer, because it's just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Being supported like that, right? If you've had that opportunity, then you know. If you've worked with Nick, then you know. So, and I perform on stage, and I love performing still. And so that's, yeah, that's me I'm a songwriter. Yeah, those are some of the hats I wear.
Got a
Really happy to be here.
real big hat cupboard, but some fine hats in there.
I
Um,
love it.
Wonderful. Um, okay, and perhaps we could all introduce ourselves just very briefly. I'm going to invite you in this moment to use the chat box. I still have this obscene message from some intruder a little while ago. That's quite funny. But yes, would you like to just put in the chat box like um, uh, who you are, where you're joining us from, and what sort of musician you are, I suppose would be great. And after that, we'll have a bit of a chat about what you'd like to get out of the session. But yeah, if you just want to just pop in, just who you are, what you're up to. So Dennis, singer-songwriter from California. Natasha. Oh, ah. Oh no, no, Enter doesn't do that. No, no, yeah, it catches me out too. So, Lisa, UK singer, songwriter, cellist. Ah, I know somebody who is looking for a cellist actually, that might be in this room. So that's kind of fun.
Feel free to message me.
Yes, yes. Uh, well, I will introduce a way of you doing that in a moment. Oh, in fact, you can do it. I don't mind if you do that in the chat box privately. Jacob from Nashville, Severa from London, singer producer. Thomas, songwriter, singer, producer, getting back into creativity. Claire, vocal coach, not an expert in the studio. Fantastic. Natasha, amazing singer, soul singer and piano player. Nick in the UK, Berlin, in Berlin, singer songwriter. Andy, musician, producer, and sound engineer. Ruth, Spain. Josh, London. It's a good selection here. So we've got a wonderful mix of vocalists and producers and other things. So you'll have. It's an incredibly powerful room. This. I just want you to just acknowledge that everybody in here has some astonishing talents. Before we go any further, actually, I'm just gonna sort of share the links for this this session in the chat box. Here's a bunch of things. Are they all coming up in your chat box there? So this is all the stuff I can think that could be useful for you. This has got Laura's website here. I do have like a tip jar if you value the session. I always put this in right at the end and squeeze it in, but it's there. Like the most important thing is that you're here and that you're connecting with each other and learning. But it does help to sort of sustain this thing that I'm doing here with the donation. So there is a WhatsApp community that I've begun called the Really Excellent Production Know-How Alliance. Is anyone here? Who here is not a part of that? Lisa, Molly, okay. Dennis, Nick, okay, all right. So it's a WhatsApp community, which is like a little collection of groups, a little collection of different conversations you can be a part of. I use it basically. If you sign up to it, you're signing up to an announcements page where you'll hear about the events that I'm putting on of this kind, and it's not spammy. You might get one or two messages a week or something just about this, exactly this sort of thing, and you can join conversations and collaborate with each other. People are giving each other mixed feedback, helping each other with their production barriers and so on, and it's really beautiful seeing how people are sort of helping each other, and there's beginners all the way up to pros there. So like the beginners are getting sort of more advice from above. The pros are getting a chance to give counsel to people who are sort of less earlier in their journey than them. And yeah, it's a lovely thing. So I invite you to join that. There's YouTube playlists, YouTube videos of the previous webinars. Feel free to have a look at what we've done previously, and then some of my stuff if you want to check out more of what I do. So there you go. Yes, so I think we're getting towards the actual kind of the meat of this. So yeah, you have all joined a webinar called Vocal Technique for the Recording Studio. Why have you done that? Why have you done that? I would love to hear from you. If you have what would you like to get from this is what I'm asking. What would you love to come away with from this session?
I would love to be able to nail beautiful vocals at home. I have a studio space, but it's really not very kitted out. And I can make really emotional vocals or really close mic and really present vocals, but sometimes I overload. Sometimes the technology messes, and I would love to know more.
Okay, all right, great. So you're recording your voice at home, and there are some technical things that you'd like to look at. So actually, some of the earlier webinars dealt with some more of the actual capture and the mixing side of things. So please do look at that list of YouTube videos, because there'll be some help on that. This session is intended towards helping. Like the actual performance side of it and sort of unlocking the best of our performance, but it all intertwines. Dennis, hi.
I was recently blessed to spend an afternoon in the studio with Nick,
Here we go.
And I'm kind of coming at this backwards because we worked together and I had the experience, but I thought maybe I'd pop in here and I would kind of close the loop and learn a little bit more about what the hell it is I did.
Okay, cool. All right.
Maybe connect something there. And I will tell you, mate, I will love you forever for having me in your studio and working with me. And it was really a special time.
It was a
It was
really
really
special day, Dennis.
very very meaningful to
It
me,
was,
and
it
I
was, it,
appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, I was able to I was able to cut a song in memory of my son, and that was because of the two Nicks.
it was a real privilege, Dennis. I'll share about it as it's ready. But yeah, thank you for that day. Okay. I would really like to hear something from everybody, actually. If you'd like to, if there's a particular thing that you'd like to come away with today, maybe it's um, maybe you're new to recording vocals in the studio. Maybe there are practical things about warm-ups or uh, vocal health that you'd like to sort of think about. Um, Maybe you record yourself and you want to know how to do that better. Maybe you want to know more about working with a producer and how to communicate with them. Um, so, whatever it might be, I would really love to hear. Yes, hi, Thomas.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good.
It's really
Yeah,
good.
pretty much what you just said. I mean, kind of getting into the zone, getting into the right frame of mind and capturing something meaningful. So maybe to understand some basics about how I can kind of tap into that and get the best and not do a Bowie at, 3 a.m. after 80 Benson and Hedges. Yeah, something a little bit more accessible than that.
So instead of taking up smoking,
Yeah, yeah.
you want to find an alternative for smoking.
Well, that was part of it, but yeah.
That kind of blows this webinar apart, unfortunately, because the
We
answer
were gonna,
is
yeah,
smoking, basically.
classic smoking.
Uh, all right. Well, Thomas, can you just give me like one more one specific thing that maybe is like a that you see as a sort of tricky thing that you sort of might want to get past? Is it?
I guess even thinking about kind of warm up and basic sort of voice hygiene and any kind of guidance along those lines would be really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Cool. All right, Andy.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you.
Excellent. Finally, it's this MacBook Pro. Yes, I work with a number of vocalists, singer-songwriters specifically, and I think one of the challenges that I have is how to you. We'll do multiple takes, comps of lead vocals. How do you work through a performance? I'm looking for tips and advice, the psychological perspective, how to kind of coach somebody through a particularly difficult take, knowing how to navigate, when to pull back and when to push through, and just to kind of get a better understanding of some of the language behind the whole process.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That
Great
is what
question.
that is stuff we can help you with today. So yeah, and just the context you're working with them in. Are you working with them as a producer?
We typically, it's a one-on-one session in my studio, so I'm engineering and also producing
Great.
by default.
Wonderful. Okay. Thanks, Andy. Lovely.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Claire. Hey.
Hi, everyone. I have a few interests actually, and I think mostly it lays around the fact of the language and communication between producer and singer. And when an artist goes in with their baby, with their song, about how that relationship works with the person they're working with, and how you get to the point where it doesn't feel like all of a sudden you don't own what's going on, how you have that communication together. And I'm also interested as well around the fact about if vocal coaches actually work in the studio alongside a singer, supporting them at any point. There are a few things I'd be interested in.
Great. Laura, maybe you can give a quick answer to that. Do you go into the studio with artists
Yes,
directly and
yes,
and work with them that
absolutely.
way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm brought in sometimes specifically as a vocal producer, but more often as a vocal coach. And there's shared ground between those two labels, but the more common scenario is I'll have a client who will be recording and they'll say, "Can you come into the studio to support me or help me?" And it's a very helpful thing because we already have the connection. Most of the time we have a great connection. I know this person, I've worked with them here in my space or on Zoom, and they trust me and they're comfortable. And when we trust people and we're comfortable with them, we relax. And we all know, like, then we're on our way to getting the performance that we hope for in the studio. So yeah, I do a lot of that.
Awesome. It's a very exposing and vulnerable thing sometimes, and one of the things that I have in mind to talk about is learning to work with a new person. It takes time to learn how to do that and become comfortable with them. So in those instances, Laura, that they have that relationship with you that you can take into that space. Without you there, they would be having to figure out all those things and understand how that communication works with a new person, which takes time and is a skill and is a lovely thing to figure out.
Yeah. And
But yeah.
yeah, absolutely, Nick. And I think often I'm brought in as that safe person. But then also, Claire, speaking to your first question, I have language. I can be sort of a go-between. I can be an interpreter, if you will, between the producer and the singer, because I have the vocal language, vocal, technical language, and more of the understanding of what the producer's after. Because sometimes there's a breakdown in communication there. Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Of course. Great questions.
Thank you, Laura. Cool. All right. Cool. Clara, just going back to some of your earlier questions about the song being their baby and the having the ownership of the song. I mean, we go into a studio to record something that might be really like very personal to us, and we're going into a space that might not feel so personal. So I think that's a fantastic question. We're gonna keep that on the list. We're gonna hopefully come back to that. But I love that that's something you recognize, because it's not just about this isn't about technique. This is about communicating something very personal. We're trying to connect to people. Finding a space to do that is what we're aiming to do. Awesome. Hello, Joel in space.
Hello. I feel like I'm going to run out of oxygen soon, so I'll keep this quick. Um, uh, I'm kind of interested in like a mixture of everything that's been mentioned, from warm-ups to communicating with collaborators and clients about like sort of the language that's used and finding ways of communicating intention and like discussing intention with the vocal. Um, but I think I'm also, and this hasn't really been mentioned yet, also really interested in like when I'm recording, this might just be a warm-up thing, but sometimes it might take me 10 takes to sort of discover what I actually want the vocal to be.
Mhm.
And I think as well as a warm-up thing, that might be a psychological thing. And I don't know, like I would love some sort of a shortcut to that place, because then I feel like I could, let's say I have 20 takes in me, I could use those 20 takes on the actual thing that I want it to be rather than waste some just to get to that place, possibly. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Absolutely. So yeah, we're commonly doing quite a few takes to get things down. It's rare that I do less than 3 takes, and it's not unusual to do 4 or 7 or whatever or more. Um, Managing that and knowing that journey, understanding that journey is a great thing to sort of get around. Cool. Thank you, Joel. It's on the list. Mr. Noe, you're muted.
Sorry. Hello, guys. I am here because I have a lot of experience producing other people's vocals, but not so much myself. I'm doing a project where I'm going to be doing a majority of the singing. And so I'm just trying to soak in as much as I can, mainly like warming up and like how to prepare my vocal. I'm also a huge Laura Donohue fan, so yeah, I couldn't miss this.
Oh, I'm a Jacob Noe fan. Thank you.
Likewise. Yeah. We're all going to be fans of the both of you by the end of this. Okay, so self-producing vocals, tips for that, and warming up. Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks, Jacob. Mr. Bell.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm good.
So I think two things that sort of sprung to mind. One, people have sort of touched on already, which is that it's, the getting the vocalist in the right zone for it, in the sense of, you might be used to playing this song on your own, like at a keyboard, and you'd sing it totally naturally, and then suddenly you're in a really unnatural environment where you've got your headphones on and the mix is weird and all that sort of stuff, and how as a producer you can make that environment as natural as possible. And then the other thing was kind of something I witnessed recently, which is when a lot of people, a lot of musicians, a lot of vocalists are perfectionists, and they might do 20 takes and still not be happy with something. And as the producer, you're going, I know it's good enough, because you can be objective about it, or it's not quite good enough, but I know it's like within the ballpark that a really tiny subtle bit of melodyne or something could fix it, and the performance is there, even if the pitch isn't perfect or whatever it is, and trying to persuade the artist like you're good. Walk away, like, if that makes sense.
Okay, all right, that is a fantastic area. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely look at that. Folks, this is a really great list of questions and interests. So so how about we have you listed them down over there, Laura?
Yes, I have.
I have them here as well. Natasha's here. Sorry, do you have one more thing? Hi.
Hi, can you hear me or the TV?
You. Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's fine if it's like this. Fab.
Do you have the TV on in the background? That's cheeky.
Well, yeah, I'm not watching it, but I'm trying to sort of co-inhabit. But
Press on. Yeah.
Press on. Yeah. So really, I would be interested in hearing from other people's experiences of keeping it fresh in the studio, because I think stepping onto the mic can be suddenly there can be like a pressure, like I have to achieve this now, and there's, in my experience, there's no bigger killer of the tape than that mindset. So it's like, when like avoiding getting into a rut of redoing the same take over and over again, and sort of stepping away from the actual sentiment, the message, the performance, like the knowing when you're in your flow and having that be what you're doing rather than trying to achieve a sound. Yeah. And also to talk about the communication between producer and vocalist, because it's like, on the one hand, as a vocalist, I think you need to know when you're hitting your stuff, and when it feels right. That's usually probably going to be one of your better takes, when you're staying in that space. But you need the producer to communicate what they're hearing and direct you. So a singer needs to be able to take direction, and a producer needs to be able to communicate to that particular singer in that moment what it is that's going to help them to get out of any rut that they might be falling into. Yeah. So I would be interested to hear from other people's studio experience, how did they, one, shake themselves out of potentially slipping into that space, keep it free, keep it real, keep it in the moment, keep the performances like genuine and not like an attempt at something. And also, what do producers encounter? What do they see singers do? What traps do they see singers fall into? And how do they kind of try navigate them out of that? And also, I think it would be useful as well for anyone who maybe is less experienced to just talk about some of the like recording etiquette, like finishing a tape. I mean, unless you know it's completely terrible and you're not having that, but seeing things through, because quite often there's a sense of life inside that tape which you might not think is happening as the singer, but it's got something about it which makes it better than the ones that you think are good. So making sure that you always lay everything down, leave it there, but yeah, more the communication and the perspective from both sides. How do both sides like nurture that free, genuine space which allows the performance to come through?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, creating a space where the magic can happen and both agreeing,
Yeah.
and knowing when it's happened, and having some understanding about that moment. Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. And Molly, let's take one from you, and then I think we probably ought to get into some details. Yeah.
Just a quick one. I just want to know a bit more about vocal processing as well. When you get the good take, I want it to sound more polished rather than I've just recorded it in my bedroom.
Okay, very simple. Look at the YouTube videos. That's what they're about. We're not going to do anything of that in terms of like mixing. We'll have a little talk about editing today because that does relate to capturing the performance. But in terms of treatments, have a look at some of the previous webinars because that's covered there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but in terms of what we can do with the technology here to sort of edit things, that's very relevant. Yeah. Okay, all right. So how about, it seems like there's a few people who are sort of thinking about warm-up techniques, and this is something that I'd really like to ask Laura about as well. Just like what I know that it takes a little while for my voice, for any of the singers' voices to warm up. What sort of what processes do you use, Laura, when you're in this situation? Or do you recommend?
So, I have a general sort of body of warm-ups that I love, that I use for myself, and that are go-tos for the clients that I work with. But it's also a really individual thing. And I will say, keep in mind, you're a vocal athlete when you're a singer. Your body is your instrument, right? You do have a certain amount of mileage available to you each day, and it is going to tap out. So think about, when you're thinking about your warm up, think about that equation. So how much of my mileage can I use with my warm up? Sometimes people warm up too long and they get into the studio and they're tired, or they're on their way to tired. So if you've only got one song to sing, you can warm up longer. You can sing for longer. Really get yourself into it. If you've got a full day of vocals to track, I would spend less time on the warm up. Warm up a little bit so you go in there and you're not cold, but you're gonna be warming up as you get in. We're doing some warming up anyway when we get in the studio, warming ourselves even mentally into the process, right? And that applies to the voice too. So I will say, I love the body of exercises that we call, in the super nerdy, fun vocal world, we call them SOVTs. Have you guys heard about straws, vocalizing through a straw? Any of you done that? Yeah. So that's a semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. And I'll keep this brief, and I'm going to give you a really great resource that you can explore some more for yourself. But I want to talk about it because the SOVT exercises, and that includes the straw, and that includes that sort of lip trill, lip bubble sound, right? Sometimes people use. It includes humming. It includes um, sounds like puffing up air in your cheeks, anything where your mouth is closed or partially closed. Okay, that's the semi-occluded vocal tract. Those exercises are wonderful warm-ups, generally speaking. They're great warm-ups because they're really low mileage and they help for many people if you do them correctly. And like I'm just going to say, with anything I tell you, really listen to your body, listen to your voice. You'll know if it's working for you, or you'll know if you're doing something and either not getting the results you seek or it's making you tired. So the semi-occluded vocal exercises tend to be low mileage and they tend to help us coordinate the instrument really quickly. Okay, so that we're using our air efficiently, we're using the vocal folds efficiently, we're accessing the resonance. Those are our three main parts of the instrument, the physical parts of the instrument. And so those are great. They're also great for a tired voice. So if you're in the studio and you're getting tired, taking that straw, stepping away, doing some vocal exercises through the straw or something similar, something comparable, can be a really nice reset. Get you back into that efficient way of making sound, that economical way of making sound, right? So then you can go back and maybe access some more singing where you're feeling fresher. Okay, so I love starting with semi-occluded vocal tract stuff. That's a great place to explore if you're new to that. I really love the website voicescienceworks.org. voicescienceworks.org. And they have an entire section that is warm-ups and vocal exercises. And you can go in there and you can see, oh, there's those SOVTs that Laura was talking about, and they explain what they're about. And then they have links to videos and ways to practice with them. They have a really cool section in there called Order of Operations. And it talks you through a really great order. Thank you, Nick, for putting that in the chat. They talk you through a really great, again, general order of operations for your warm-up. And then beyond that, it depends on what kinds of things you're trying to sing, how tired you are, and again, how much voice you need that day to access. Is that helpful for a start?
Thank you. Yes. So semi-occluded, we're talking about like restricting how much air can come out. Is that basically the idea? So
Yeah.
singing through a tube, so you're putting more pressure into it, but not so much air is coming out.
Yeah. So what happens is you get this, the physics of that are that you get this back pressure. So you get some, obviously all the air, all the sound can't come out of the mouth, or it's forced into a smaller opening. And so you get back pressure, and it's acoustic energy and air. And you get that back pressure on top of the vocal folds, and then you've got the air pressure from below the vocal folds, and it creates this cushioning effect. And it also just helps us access that resonance. They all work together, but does that make sense?
It does, and I can also imagine that if you made that part of your practice, it would become almost like a ritualistic kind of thing. Like I'm going to sing now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through this practice because I'm about to sing.
Yes.
And so physically and mentally prepared for that, a little ritual.
I love that you said that, Nick. And I'll add on to that. That is a huge piece of getting a great vocal in the studio is feeling like a singer, feeling like you've cared for your instrument. You're doing those things, those practices, those rituals. And if you're doing those rituals at home on a fairly regular basis, let's just say 5 out of 7 days, you're doing those rituals on a regular basis because you're a singer. And even if you're also a songwriter, or if you're also a producer, but you sing sometimes, you're a singer. And you're practicing those practices and you're showing up for those rituals, there is this powerful psychological effect. And of course, there's the physical effect. But I don't know if we can even just say which one is more powerful. They both serve and support each other. But you're doing that, then you show up in the studio, you do that ritual, and you're like, okay, I'm ready. Now I'm ready. I'm mentally ready. I'm physically ready because I'm a singer. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. I will try that. I will try that. I'm going to share what I've been doing without that knowledge, with my artists when I record them. I mean, sometimes I get them to do sirening, so they're sort of going from the bottom to the top of their range.
Love it.
But most of the time, I don't really do any sort of technical warm-up exercises. The warm-up is singing the song. It's just beginning with the song, getting the song in the room. And it becomes part of my process of getting the sound together for them. And having them get used to their voice in the space. One of the most important things for me when I'm recording a vocalist is that what they're hearing sounds fantastic. It's got to sound fantastic in there. I take time while that warm-up is happening to adjust the mix of their headphones. I'm asking them if it's loud enough. I will use some compression, some reverb, just so we get some nice balance for while they're hearing back through there. I will record it clean, by the way, just for those who are thinking of this, simply because then if I need to come back to it another day, I don't have to faff around and reset controls. I just record it clean, do all the processing later on. And then it gives me total flexibility and I can just go for it. Okay. But a bit of compression and a bit of reverb really helps the sound come through beautifully and sound more like a record already when they're hearing. But I'll go through, I will usually start the sessions by doing maybe 2 or 3 run-throughs of the whole song. So I'm learning the song. So I'm getting the sound together. They're getting used to the sound of their own voice in the headphones. They're warming up in the process. I'm starting to hear maybe some things we might want to address about the delivery and this sort of thing. It sort of like kills a few birds with one stone there to do it like that. But
I love it.
the capacity for a proper warm up before that begins, I think, is really exciting to explore as well. Because sometimes that first take is magic. Sometimes you just want to just like sing it once and be done with it. That very, very rarely happens, but I suppose that opens that possibility.
Yeah.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, just a quick question on what you were just saying. Do you have a dedicated headphone mix for the performer that's different to the mix that you're hearing?
Great question. No. I want to hear exactly what they're hearing. I want to know exactly what they're hearing. I want there to be absolutely no doubt that I am hearing what they are hearing. The most important thing in that moment is that they can hear what they need to hear, and I can tell if my recording is clean or not. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to sound like a record to me. It has to sound like a record to them. It has to be whatever will help them perform is the only thing I'm concerned about. So I have an independent volume control, but the same mix. Yeah. While I'm on it, by the way, the other tool I'll use with this is the overall volume. If you give them a quiet version of their voice in their headphones, it will encourage them to sing louder. And if you give them a lot of vocals, it'll feel okay to be quieter. And sometimes if you want to encourage a softer tone, just give them loads of level in there, and they will pull back naturally on how they perform, and it'll feel natural to get that sort of softer sound. So that can be a really nice little trick. So yeah. Okay. Let's go to another point. Yeah. Laura, is there anything that was speaking to you that you'd like to go straight in with?
Well, I kind of want to make sure, I want to highlight what you were just talking about just for a second before we move on with the headphone mix for the vocalist. And I feel like this can't be emphasized enough. So that's why I want to highlight it, underline it, that if you're the vocalist and the mix, something's not right. Even if you don't know exactly what it is and you don't know how to explain it, speak up. Take that time. Sounds like a lot of you are recording yourselves, but if someone else is recording you, if you're recording yourself, take the time to tweak it, to mess around with it, to play with different mixes and different levels. It's kind of everything, right? And I'm sure you all know the trick of taking a headphone off one ear, you know, some people that helps tremendously, some it doesn't. But experiment. That's one of those areas I find often vocalists will feel like they need to just, because time is money and you're in the studio and people are, the producer's waiting or the engineer's waiting, or maybe there's other people there that are waiting, or, and again, speaking to that, Natasha was talking about that pressure. It can come in even there at the top of the session when we're getting the sounds and getting the headphone mix. And I just tell people, just, you're not being a diva. You are taking care of your instrument and producing and delivering the best possible performance. That's what you're there to do for you and everyone else. And so take the time to really get it right.
It's so
And
important, and thank you, Laura. I mean, like I know how important it is to me and the people I'm recording, and I am like after the first three takes, I'm like, "Are your headphones good?" I'm checking in with them all the time. Not everyone will do that, and not everyone will know that that's something that they can talk about, and not
that they
everyone will
can.
realize just how easy it is to sort it out and fix the problem for them and make
That's
it
right.
sound good.
That's right.
Natasha.
Yeah, I would also say, like, make yourself as comfortable as possible in the studio in whatever way you have to. If you need to wear your slippers, if you need to take off the bra, like, do what you need to do, because you
Yes.
need to be the fullest self that you are. And, you know, wear the baggy pants, like, whatever. If it's too cold, say. But, like, you need to be totally comfortable. Stretch your body, no tension anywhere. Like, anything, everything that you need to do, go to the loo, you know, like, I I end up like doing weird stretches and getting myself in all crazy positions because I need to get rid of it so that I'm totally free. It's like that place, that studio space is sacred, and it's kind of up to you to preserve that and honor it as well and make sure that everything's right there. So it's like, yes, everything about the mix in your headphones, all that, and the space around you as well, and make sure you're warm enough. Because if you're not warm, you're tight, you know. So yeah, just my thoughts.
Yeah, and this is gonna look and feel different for every singer as well. That's gonna mean something different. So personally, I always wear a bra when I'm. No,
What works for you?
whatever works, you know,
That's what
is
we're.
fair game.
Yeah.
But but the comfort, I mean, like physical comfort is easy to talk about.
Yeah.
The sort of the feeling of safety though, and the psychological comfort, I think is something which is more nuanced and maybe more elusive. Is that part of this equation for you, Natasha? Or is that a part of what you mean by comfort?
Yeah, yeah. It's like on every level, I feel like there can't be tension anywhere. So it's like I'll do whatever is necessary to take myself into that space, you know, and it's kind of like that's the point. So like everything should be about facilitating that. It's like if the vibe in the studio is off, it's like that's gonna affect like if it's making me feel awkward, then that's going to be present when I'm trying to deliver something. So I'd probably have to address that. And you know, usually it's not like that. But if there was anything like uncomfortable, sort of emotionally or energetically in the space as well, it's like that needs to be
Yeah.
gone, you know, because we're that like I feel like we should know what our own sacred space feels like and then make sure that that's what we're feeling when we're there
Yes.
and ask for all the help, you know, from everyone to facilitate that and support that so that we can then get to the good stuff, you know.
What's helped you the most with that, Natasha?
I think knowing yourself, like knowing yourself as a person, and also, you know, experience, you know, going into studios and doing things, doing sessions, you learn little things each time, you know, which then you can add together. But I think just knowing who you are and what you need, it's like that I think you have to be responsible for sort of speaking up about that, because a producer, an engineer, they don't know what you need to get into your, you know, your groove. Like, it's a problem if you don't know that either, because then who does know that? So it's like knowing your most authentic self so you can take that there and create the space for that to exist, I think is a good place to start personally. It's muting.
Well said. There's some advocating for yourself, isn't there? Yeah, in that space. And I would just say, I tell people too, work with people that you're really comfortable with. Like if you're in the position to choose an engineer, choose a producer, go with the people that you feel really comfortable with, you know, because that, I mean, Natasha, when you were sharing at the top of the webinar, when you were sharing your thoughts and your questions about the pressure and the producer and the vocalist, I was just thinking, it's such an intimate relationship. It's such an intimate relationship. Vocalist and producer or engineer or producer / engineer. It's so intimate, and trust and comfort is essential, I think, you know.
I might speak to that a bit.
Please.
Yeah, when we first go into the studio with someone new, there's a lot of learning that has to happen there. When we're first working with a vocalist, there's a lot that I don't know about the singer yet, and there's a lot that they don't know about me, and that's the starting point. And during that first session, the point of it is to figure that out, is to understand each other, how we communicate, and explore that. Everyone's different. There is no one template for this, other than to communicate and ask and check in with people, really. Things I've found to help. Sometimes people will have preferences from previous sessions they've done, so there's some easy things that they know will help them that you can bring into your session. Some will want more guidance, and some of them will want to guide more, and you'll start to understand, and that's fine. Both of those ways are fine if you know what that dance is and you let it be kind of free and flowing. It's okay. When I first start working with a singer, I don't know what they're capable of. Actually, I don't know everything that is possible for them. I don't know the highest note that they can hit, and I don't know what problems we're going to come up against. And sometimes I don't know if they're singing at their absolute fullest capacity. And I want to say it's okay to push people a little bit, to find that limit, because when you know where the limit is, then you can understand what your parameters are. You know you can't go any higher than that. You can't go any louder than that. It doesn't sound good when this person pushes this hard. Okay, all right, let's step back from that. So if you've got direction as a producer to sort of change the way someone delivers something, try it out and go a little bit too far sometimes, and then you know the full extent of what's possible. Similar with mixing. Turn that knob too far. Hear what too much is like, and then bring it back a little bit. It's okay to do. What I like to talk about giving feedback and creating trust with a singer, because I feel like there's something very crucial that happens during the recording process, which can create this sort of safe space. A vocalist wants to know that they're being heard and that they're being looked after. And, well, my process for this is I take notes continuously. I continuously take notes on performances. Let's see if I can find this. Is one of my notebooks that I use when I'm recording vocalists. And so what do we have here? So these are all take notes from vocal sessions. Most of them. Let's find a juicy one. Should have done this earlier. There we go. Yeah. So this is one example where like I've got here take 1, take 2, take 3, and then I've got like intro, section 1, verse 2, chorus, and so on. I've got ticks and crosses. That's one way I've been doing it. So as I go through it, the reason I'm saying this now is that when I'm making notes continuously, I am tuned in to what they're doing. I am actively listening to what they're doing. I'm not drifting off. I'm not thinking about anything else. That pen in my hand is keeping me totally focused on every nuance of what they're doing. Here's another way I do it sometimes. There we go. So we go. This is verse 1, take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4. And then we've got the 7 lines. And I've got different varieties of circles going around each of these lines. And this is telling me, like a full circle tells me that that line has been nailed. A circle on the first half says maybe the first half of that line was good. A cross is obviously self-explanatory. This is not a good take. But each line by line, I have that. And if I can feed back to the vocalist at the end of that, something that is true and helpful to them, that builds trust. It doesn't serve the vocalist to just be nice to them. Well, you've got to be nice to people, but just to say what you think they want to hear. If there's something that can be improved, speaking to them about it in the right way is going to build trust, because they know that you've heard a problem and that you want to help them with that, and that creates a safe space. Like, okay, you've hit a block with this one. Let's work through this. Let's find a solution. So just knowing that you've been heard as a vocalist, I think makes a huge difference. Taking notes like this helps a lot with that. In that, though, I will say it's good to leave a space for the vocalist to feedback first, until you have a really sort of close communication with them and you can sort of just go in, and you know each other well enough. But leaving a space, so how was that take for you? It's like, oh, it's pretty good. Cool. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. There's a couple of things in here that I think we could look at to tighten up. If there are 10 things, there may be 10 things that you want to talk to them about. Don't tell them 10 things at once. They cannot take all that in. 1 or 2 things between takes, so they can sort of just build towards this thing. Will help a lot. I also find that it's very important that a vocalist can understand what's possible in editing. As well. Just this is speaking to the perfectionism a little bit as well, but also the guidance. Like just if as Laura, you were saying earlier on, we can fix the tuning, we can fix the timing. That is no problem at all for a producer, but the feeling has got to be there. So for a vocalist to understand that, well, maybe it was a bit flat, but it felt awesome, and that'd be okay. We'll sort that out. That's what these tools are for. That's the purpose of these tools, is to preserve the feeling of these things. So I might just very quickly show you how I sort of comp and edit things, just so you can sort of see the process, because some of you might not have seen inside a session like this before. So I'm just going to share my screen over here real quick. There we go, share. So this is a project I've been working on with a wonderful artist, Saint Blue. We have a sort of kind of lo-fi soul kind of thing going on. So co-writing, full production. Yeah, so just a little insight into this session here. It looks like that. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just put this out of the. One second. Okay. And can I just check you can all hear this as well? Oh gosh, there we go. Can you? Oh, I think it's breaking up a little bit. Can you hear that? Is that coming through okay? All right, so here looks a mess, and I've got the spinning wheel. I'm going to go in for my lead vocal track here. This is what it looks like. Notice I've gone section by section with this. So they've all ended up on the same channel, but actually I've recorded it in sections. So I've done it like a first verse set of takes, a second verse set of takes, and just moving through it section by section. So I can be more sure that I've got one particular section of the song sorted out before I move on confidently to the next one. It's very hard to keep track of what's been good and what's been bad if you try and record the whole song. Some people can do it, that's great, but I find this is the most reliable way to go section by section. And so this is the first verse. I will have made notes similar to what I showed you, saying that on take one was maybe a warm-up, take two had a couple of good lines there, and probably at the end of this, I just made this comp straight away, moved on. Don't get caught up in editing while the flow is happening. Keep the energy going, but just make that sort of quick comp, and you can go into details later on. Here's another bit here. So yeah, going between lines here. This is very, very normal stuff. Just choosing the different takes line by line,
In the seconds I stop having any fun, my eyes turn black. I'm lost inside the fiction. Your cure is my addiction. You paint a pretty picture before the crucifixion. If at any point it don't feel right, you just gotta listen. Don't stay up all night, just chasing highs. And if at any point it don't feel.
So you can see here we're swapping between takes in the middle of words sometimes. It's absolutely normal, and honestly, she's a great singer. I haven't needed to do very much. I often do a lot more than this. After that process is done, I use Melodyne to do some vocal tuning, and this honestly, it's a tool to make sure that the ones that felt right but weren't tuned right, we can use them. So these are the sorts of tools that I have as a producer, and that you as self-producers, that you can use to make these takes work. So if you can, like to speak to you, Josh, about the perfectionism of these artists. If you can confidently know these tools well enough and show the artist how closely you've been listening and how sure you are that you have the takes, and how sure you are that you can fix the bits that they're concerned about, then you can build that relationship where you all understand each other and you can move forward. But yeah, having that knowledge that you're being heard, every detail of what you're doing is being heard, I think is at the heart of it for me. Yeah. I went on a bit there, but
Love it.
Yeah, it's a little window into it.
I'm thinking of something that I heard actually in our coaching cohort. Nick and I are both a part of, and Claire. People are not accustomed to being listened to deeply. And when you show up and that's a version of what Nick is demonstrating, right? With his artists. And if you show up in that space as a producer, an engineer, and listen to that vocalist like they've never been listened to before. And I mean, listen before the recording even starts, right? Like listen to what they say about their work and what they're desiring and how they feel about themselves as a singer and their challenges. And then you get them behind the mic and you're listening. You're continuing to listen at that level. That has a tremendous impact People are not accustomed to it. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And makes for a wonderful working environment. Yeah.
It really does. It's almost a meditative state when you get into hearing those
Yes.
kinds of details. It's really wonderful.
Yes.
Hey,
And
Claire.
again, the
Oh, sorry.
singer relaxes. The
Mm,
singer relaxes, right? The vocalist, oh, what happens when we trust people? We soften. We soften.
mm.
Like Tasha was saying earlier, movement. I'll come back to this in a second. I want Claire to ask her question, but it's huge. The voice, the body is the voice. The body is the instrument. So all that trust, all that softening, all that relaxing makes for better singing. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Claire.
Hi. So I was listening to a few things that both of you were saying earlier and some of the questions other people were asking, and around the fact of, again, the differing perspective between the vocalist and the producer. So, we talked about, singers maybe being very perfectionist around the specific sound they're creating at that time. You said that you're listening out for something maybe different, or what can be edited out at a later stage. But also, you mentioned, Nick, what you think is a good take, and I'm intrigued to know from your perspective what makes a good take.
Well, it moved me. It moved me. I felt something. I mean, like it's there is the filter of tuning and the technicalities of it that go into that. But sometimes it just hits, or there might be something special and unique about the way they did a particular line. And so like, as well as like sort of having my system of like that line was good, that line was okay, that one, sometimes I'm making notes like the end of this note was just incredible. So how do I know? I felt it. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Please.
Claire, you have done the same thing with your vocalists in the vocal teaching studio. There are those moments that happen where you're like, oh, there it is. There's an ease, a freedom, and a truth about it, maybe, right? And sometimes we can't even be more specific than that, but we're moved. They tap into a freedom, an authenticity, and we're moved by it. And sure, there's still some subjectivity. There's artistry. I mean, there's so many options, and people like different things. You could, argue about which take is better out of a variety of them, but there's something about the ones that work. Yeah, there's the freedom and there's the emotion. I've been in the studio with singers when I could hear when their thinking changed. I was out in the control room listening, and they're singing, and it's like, oh yeah, it's good. And then something shifted. And maybe we let them sing through, and then we talk to them. Okay, what happened? Or maybe they stopped, and it's like their thinking changed. They started thinking technically, or started worrying about it, or who knows? You know what I mean? You can hear it, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
One thing that can help when that isn't happening, because sometimes it doesn't happen, right? Sometimes that is not what we're experiencing. We're doing all the right things, but we're not quite in the zone with it, and it's just not happening. Who's been in that situation? Few, okay. There's a point where it can be good to think, this is the guide vocal. Let's just put this aside for a second. You're taking on a load of new things when you record. You've got the unfamiliarity of your voice in the headphones of the mix. Maybe you're trying to sing things in different ways, and you're trying to, and you're thinking about how to do it. You've got your head is doing it, not the heart, and that's getting in the way. And sometimes I find just getting a guide vocal down, one that we can work with while we maybe continue producing the song in other respects and so on, and it's sitting in the background, and the singer is learning the song through the whole day, and they become very familiar with it. So when they come back to it, they know, frankly, they know how it goes, and it's a much more natural thing. to then revisit it and have a flow with it. So sometimes it's just like, don't force it. Just let's pause. Let's pause. Let's have a cup of tea and refresh. That's fine. It's necessary, and it's hard to ask for when it's on the clock, I suppose. Sometimes it's like, but yeah.
But it's that slowing down that creates more time in the long run, right? It's that. So going back to what Natasha was saying, and I've forgotten who was asking about guiding singers, maybe Andy, or Joshua, that stepping away from the mic and it doesn't even have to be changing gears completely. You could kind of stay with the working on the vocal, but just take a break. You know how a baby will stop crying if you take them outside? Like a change in environment. Like if you can, step outside, breathe, move your body, shake your head, do some stretches. I'm all about the stretches. In fact, it's almost the more important part of the warm-up to me, is like loosening and freeing the body and breathing. And so just get out from behind the mic. It can become so contracting a space, right? And so if you just get out from behind the mic, change your environment a little bit, shake, move your body, distract your mind with something else for a moment. Yeah, maybe make a cup of tea, look at a funny YouTube video, I don't know, come back and start again, and connect again. And you're freer. You got out of that, out from under the microscope, you know? Yeah, I find that really helpful. And we forget sometimes to move. We forget to move. We forget to breathe deeply when we're really focused. It's one of the pitfalls, one of the dangers of the studio. And I would just add one more thing to that. For those of you who are producing vocalists and engineering, and you're wondering about like technical language, I have two thoughts, and one would be to learn what you can about how the vocal instrument works, just how the physical instrument works. It's fascinating. It will help you have greater understanding for the singers that you're working with and give you more language. But also, by the time you're in the studio, I think the more helpful thing is to keep them free. Keep them free and keep them happy and safe. Because at that point, it's really difficult to implement a lot of physical technical change, right? I mean, you're much less likely to do that under the pressure of the studio than you are. That is really stuff that should have been worked on 2 weeks or a month out. When you come in, it's about the artistry, it's about the emotion, it's about telling a story. And that's more the freedom. Does this make sense? Like coming at it from that. If you're running into problems, I would come at it first from a, let's free up this person, let's free up this body, let's get them out from behind the mic and connect with that part of themselves that's there to tell that story, you know, and the emotion.
I see you, Natasha. I'm just going to speak to that just for a moment. The telling the story is this is something that I'm tuning into particularly at the moment. I'm like, sometimes I feel like people are really familiar with their songs and they are singing the melodies and they're doing the dynamics, but I don't feel like I'm being told a story. I'm not being moved by it. And one thing that I've been trying recently is like, how would you say this? Don't stop singing it. How would you tell me this if you were speaking this to me? Where would you put the emphasis on that? Where would you put the dynamics of that spoken phrase if you wanted to tell me emotionally in your voice what that was? And sometimes that can affect how this delivery will change, and people sort of like will lock that sort of very nuanced data into the singing. Yeah. So just
I love that. You get out of technical singing brain and kind of into more just expressing.
Yeah. I see Natasha with a hand up, and I also see Lisa with a hand up. So we're going to go in that order.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, sometimes it can be helpful, especially if you're getting a bit stuck. It's like come out into the control room, listen to what you've just done. Like just sit there, you know, have a glass of water, whatever, and just like have a different head, like be the listener. And suddenly it's like you know, what you think you're doing in the booth is not coming across, and it's like, oh, that's, you know, when I'm approaching it like that, or when I'm, in this space, it's actually sounding like this, and that can sometimes enlighten you and be the refresh that you need.
Thank you
So
for
yeah.
mentioning that. I mean, like the communication between producer and an artist. There's ways to do that really well, of course, but sometimes I don't really know exactly what I want to tell the singer in order to move things forward. So I'll just play the tape back to them and get their feedback on it. They might have some feedback having just sung it, but if they hear it, they'll hear it in a different way, and they will often identify and solve the problems themselves just by hearing it. Yeah. Lisa.
I just thought it was worth adding as well. Sometimes you can get someone to close their eyes and imagine who they're speaking to.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I've got a photo wall behind me, and even sometimes when I don't know yet, I try and find somebody that I want to talk to. The songwriting is so powerful.
I love that. Yeah. Sometimes even like, who is the song about? Very often it is about somebody, and if we visualize that, if we can picture the scene that inspired the song, that can really help. And just in that, I also find that a little bit of acting actually can also help with self-consciousness for me. If I stop trying so much to be me, and I just sort of like put on a bit of a voice and get outside of myself a little bit, it can be very freeing. And I have my Bowie thing. Sometimes I'll sing like Bowie a little bit. That's more croony, I guess. But Bowie's one of them. It doesn't sound like Bowie. It sounds like me, but I'm doing Bowie, and that helps me get out of my own little pit sometimes. But so just a little like role play thing you can do that can help.
Yeah, I love it. If there's certain aspects, if you're a singer, you're an artist, certain aspects of your artistry or certain things you love to wear on stage, wear them to the studio. Like Natasha was saying, show up in your slippers if you want. I'm all about that, by the way. I'm gonna want to be in my pajamas. But if what helps you get the energy and access this part of your artistry, wear your fabulous scarf or earrings, or whatever it is that helps you tap into that part of you, because it can be hard to generate, there's no audience. I mean, it's a small audience, but so sometimes people have trouble with that, like kind of gathering up all the energy to get the kind of performance that they want to get recorded without an audience. And it can help to act, to be an actor. Your imagination is a powerful thing. Yeah.
I feel like in various ways we've touched on quite a few things on the list here, which is a nice thing to be at with 10 minutes left. So it's nice to hear from Josh.
Yeah, just to that last point, if you've got a singer who's used to accompanying themselves, on the piano or guitar or something, like how would you deal with that? Would you just say, yeah, sure, let's like do it together and like take both takes together, or yeah.
Nick, yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I may have something to add, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, they can be both the right answer. They both can be the right answer. Sometimes, yes, Natasha here. I recorded a record with Natasha, who's a singing pianist, and Natasha, we recorded this whole thing live. And we did it because that was the flow of how you perform. The dynamics of how you play were really locked in together. And we captured those dynamics. There are some limitations to that approach, because there's piano on the vocal mic and vice versa. So it really limits what you can do editing wise. So really in that case, you have a lot more to think about. You have to get the vocal and the piano right at the same time, basically, and then splice whole takes together. and you can't edit them independently. And that can be really tricky. That can be a really tricky way to work. What I favor in these situations, sometimes it can work beautifully. Sometimes it's like all these imperfections, these glorious imperfections are just like, this is the soul, the character, this is everything, this is natural, it's beautiful, wonderful, great. Sometimes it's not like that, and there's more consideration to take in. But one thing that I do sometimes to keep that natural feel while giving myself the options is I'll get them to record it live. And then I'll get them to record the guitar over that. So then I have the guitar track that is timed to their natural flowing performance. And then I'll get them to record the vocal over that guitar track. So then everything's flowing, but I can do multiple takes of the vocal. And I can do all that comping and editing like that, while retaining the flow and the movement of that original organic take. So that's kind of like my favorite way of doing this. And I tend to find that has really good sort of outcomes with that. Because the fact is, the modern listener is used to hearing things being kind of unnaturally in tune. The sound of modern music, it's in tune. It's in tune. Small tuning imperfections that we could have got away with in the 70s, that they just sound wrong now. So we do edit, and we do use tuning tools to get that level of accuracy. So to get that's kind of my preferred way of doing that, I suppose, or at least it gives options. It gives options. Yeah. Hey, Natasha.
Hi. I just wanted to jump in and ask Laura, like, how do you like keep yourself fresh and take ready when you're in the studio? And also because you're, so experienced and you know your voice, and your, performance level, and I'm sure your studio technique is, very on point. Do you get really picky about like, no, I know that wasn't the take, like scrap that, that's not good enough for me? Like, well, how do you balance like satisfying yourself and honoring yourself because you know what you can do as a singer, and also allowing, allowing other people to hear things that maybe you can't, and how do you keep yourself fresh and not micromanage in that moment?
Say the last thing, keep myself fresh. And what was the last thing?
Keep yourself fresh and not sort of micromanage the
Micromanage.
situation from inside your head, and sort of, then stifle yourself. How do you keep that kind of thinking at bay?
That's such a great question. I feel like I struggled with that for a lot of years when I did not feel as confident in my singing, and I just doubted myself more. And so I didn't know if I could trust the producers, or I wanted to micromanage. It's a great word. It's a great phrase. Now I will speak up if I know, okay, that's not my best take. And sometimes it'll happen. I'll be recording something for someone and they'll be like, great, let's keep going. I'm like, no, hold up. It can be better. I can just give me a second. I can give you a better one. And I'll obviously I'll do that if I need to, but also I'm more comfortable now with the reality that there is no perfect. It does not exist. It does not exist. And when I'm working with someone I trust, at some point, I'm like, okay, I could stay at this all day long and pick it apart. But if I've given my best and I trust them, then I hand it over. It's my job has ended. I've done my best, and sure that can there's a fine line, but the awareness that there's no perfect, and I can trust the engineers and the producers that I'm working with to take good care of it, and that they're not gonna, when you trust someone and you have that relationship, like I know if I someday had my fantasy of going to Brighton and recording with Nick Trepka, I know I know he's not gonna, yes, he's not gonna tell me, he's gonna have my back. He's not gonna say, oh no, this is good if it's not really good. So I just think that that trust factor can't be overemphasized. Um, yeah, so it's both end. I definitely speak up when I know I can do something better, and then I know I've gotten better at knowing when to let it go. It's not my job anymore. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I'm just curious, do you have like finished takes of stuff that you've done and recorded that other people say is great and you listen to and you're like, that's so not great. Like I'm not feeling that. Because
Oh
I kind
yeah.
quite often sometimes the other people hear things and they're like, this is really good. And I'm thinking, no, it's not, it's rubbish, but it's like I've kind of got to a point where I have to think, okay, so maybe that's just you, Tash. Maybe it is good. These people have
Yep.
ears, and you just
Yep.
kind of live with what it is because other people seem to like that. Okay, like, do you
Yeah.
still have that?
Yes, absolutely. And I believe, and I encounter this a lot, and I encounter it even with professional session singers. I have clients, a handful of clients who are pro studio singers and background singers. That's all they do. And they sing sessions all day long in Nashville, and then from their homes, they record themselves. And I've had people bring me things and say, okay, I need to work on my ooh vowel because it's really not, it's something's off on it. And they're showing me they're playing these takes for me. And I'm like, sounds great. You sound great. We are so close to our voices. We are just so damn close to our voices. And we can get really good at what, Claire, you might know, I think it's Lynn Helding who talks about objective listening, like just being able to have some distance and hear ourselves. We have to develop some objective listening skills, but also we're so close to our voices and we can never be truly objective about them. And we're also, sometimes something happens, and this is a whole other can of worms, but I think it's a helpful thing to speak to now. So I'm glad you asked this, Natasha. But I've had some conversations recently with clients where we're like, we need a name for the kind of thing that can happen when you listen to your own voice a whole lot and you start to lose per, you start to lose perspective a little bit, and it's almost like body dysmorphia. It's like this voice dysmorphia. It's like you can't see anymore, or you can't hear anymore what it really sounds like to other people. And the thing is, you really can't. I mean, obviously when you're listening back to a take, you're hearing what other people are hearing, but your voice never, it's always going to sound different to you than it does to the people outside of you. And yeah, I'll just end with one of my favorite quotes from a songwriter I worked with. He said, singing is more than naked because it's inside the naked. And I love that. So, yeah, yes, I do all those things. I overthink and I don't feel great about things that other people are like, this is great, put it out in the world. Yeah.
I think I have the capacity to think that a take is worse than it is if I'm reminded of something annoying in that moment. I'm like, I didn't enjoy that take, and it was for a completely different reason.
Oh, yeah.
Folks, I just want to acknowledge it is 9:03. Now, I'm really enjoying talking to you guys, and I'm happy to carry on with these questions. If anyone does want to or need to go now, then you're very welcome to do so. Laura, are you happy to go on a little bit longer?
I'm fine to go on for a few more minutes, but I
Yeah.
also want to respect everyone's time. It's much later for many of you or most of you than it is for me. So
Yeah, and just before we go into this little bit of extra time, I'll just remind about the coffee tip jar. If you do feel like this has been very valuable to you, then I'm very grateful for any donations that you feel like giving. But don't feel obliged. It's just good to see you. Right, okay, now I think Joel and Lisa have had their hands up, and now Nick also does. I think I saw Lisa's first, and then I'm going to go to Joel, and then I'm going to go to Nick.
it was just about this. You know, as you get to know your voice more and you do more tracks and blah, 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 everyone's got their journey. And you almost, I feel like it's so related to like where I am now compared to 10 years ago is so much better. Where I might be in another 5 years isn't anywhere where I am now. So part of this, what's good enough? When do I stop? Cycle of, do we just finish tracks, get them out there, or sorry, I'm mumbling, but that element of perfectionism, or trying to know where it's good to stop, even when people are telling you. Do you still feel this kind of this journey in your own way? Is what I'm trying to say.
Laura, do you want to speak to that?
It's late.
Oh, no, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, also no, okay, so I would say, and it sounds like Lisa, you do have people that you're playing things for. So you have other ears on your music, right? It's not just you by yourself. Because we definitely need that when we are recording ourselves. We have to have, I mean, we have to have outside eyes and ears on it, right? At the right time, and trusted people. So trusted people. And if we have trusted people telling us, we really, yeah, we do have to come to that place where we're like, this is who I am now. This is what it is now. And yeah, I'm gonna keep making it's kind of a clinging mentality, right? To like hang on to one particular project or one particular song. There's this freedom. Is it Seth Godin who talks about your job is to ship it? You know, he's the blogger who writes, anyway. I love that. Your job is to ship it. It's to make art and get it out. Make art and get it out. And yeah, somewhere along there, you make the best possible art you can at that time. But your job is to release it into the world.
You probably will be a more skilled singer in 5 years, Lisa.
Oh, it's just that level of.
But I want to hear you now. We all want to hear you now.
Yeah.
We would like to have that chance. And sometimes, you know, just delivering the song as the person you are today. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. That's the important thing.
Yeah, thank you.
We can talk about it more another time if there's more things to uncover there. But I'm going to go to Joel.
Hello. I'm also sort of like very much caught up in and obsessed with the like, oh, but it will be, I'll definitely be better in like X amount of time. Maybe I should wait till then. So thank you for talking about that. I'm trying to get to a place where it's like, no, it's important to properly document where I'm at, and the more I make, the more I learn. But to get to the thing that I thought before, when you were talking about other people hearing things in your performance and sort of, I guess the mini disagreement on mini elements, how do you find the line of sort of like when to trust the outside ear and when to trust your relationship to your voice? And also, how do you identify if it's almost like a misunderstanding about like where you want to take the art? If it's sort of slightly more than like this particular vowel sound and more what you're approaching, how do you notice if it's that, I guess?
I would suggest keep both of the versions,
Mm,
so you can reflect on it later at another time with the artist, and it probably doesn't matter that much. It probably doesn't matter that much.
mm,
It's probably not going to be the thing that makes or breaks that song.
no,
It probably isn't going to go that deep.
this is a hypothetical. I need to clarify.
Yeah, it's
But
like that is almost, this is not going to be the difference between it being a hit or not, or communicating the song or not. So you might have different opinions about it. It's the artist's song, though. They live with that. That's
yeah,
permanent. unless you can find another solution with them, another take that might be a good solution or another approach,
Mm.
then it's the artist's work. But yeah, I guess just be cool. It's a vow.
It was a hypothetical. It wasn't.
Oh, I've been
Wasn't
there.
okay.
I've been there.
Okay.
Just to put some kind of limit on this, I'm gonna go to Nick. I'm gonna go to Natasha, and then we're gonna wind up. Nick, hello.
Hello, Nick. Thank you very much for the interesting discussion. It's been really great to hear stuff. I just wanted to jump back, Laura, to the point that you made about sort of the relationship between imagination and physicality. And I've been very lucky to work with Nick, so it's interesting to get that insight into sort of from the production side. I wonder from your perspective if you had any thoughts about the relationship between uh, interpreting your own music or interpreting a song, and then the relationship between the sort of physicality of that. If there's any techniques you use or anything sort of specific you might use in the studio or even leading up to a vocal recording, if there's anything that sort of helps you in terms of that interpretation, that imagination. I think sort of just to frame that a little bit, in my own experience, I'm someone who is still learning about my voice in many ways, and often the thing that I'm imagining isn't the thing that comes out. So I wondered if there's anything specific that you do to maybe help you with that, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Nick, do you find in general, I mean, it's a big subject and I'm not listening to you or hearing examples, but could you tell me more about when you're imagining something and the thing that comes out is different? Is there a pattern there? Is it a particular kind of part of your range or a particular sound that you're going for? Does this make the question
Um,
make sense?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's generally when I'm trying to be a little bit more powerful in the voice, and it might be a lack of confidence. It might be a sort of like not ever quite having explored that fully. But I think I just always feel like I've never really got to the point where I'm just like letting it go and it's just flowing. You know what I mean? I think there's always like a little bit in my head that's sort of thinking about what I'm doing, and I just wondered what that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome to the club. I mean, we're all in your head thinking too much about singing.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Until we get better at not thinking about singing, and then we'll
yeah,
sometimes start thinking about singing again. So
yeah.
there's a time to think about singing, right?
Mm,
There is a time to do the vocal technical work, and it sounds like you could benefit from exploring that more
mm,
away
mm,
from the microphone, away from
mm,
the studio. Like
mm.
just that, just what you described. So I would be excited thinking about what might happen for you if you explored ways of making that sound more powerful from a free place in your body, because you are absolutely capable of that. You
Thank you.
absolutely can do that. Singing is a learned skill. We can
Mm,
all get better at all the areas of singing. And so doing that away from the recording environment, then bringing that back into the recording environment and going into that space of the storytelling and the emotion and letting, and then you'll have that practiced tool of accessing a powerful voice from a physical standpoint at the ready for you. Is that helpful?
yeah, it really is. It really is because I think it's one of those things where I think the storytelling aspect for me works. Like I'm often able to visualize it. It's just then about connecting to that, especially in a studio situation where there's sort of a time limit and all these kind of things. So yeah, that is
Yeah,
really helpful. Thank you.
it's too much pressure to put on yourself to do that, and that's too much pressure. So you get to take that pressure off yourself and like give yourself a space to work on that. Yeah.
Mm, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great question.
I think there's various technical aspects of singing that are a matter of practice and discipline, just like improving our tuning. singing along with things like Laura. I wish we had time to go into some exercises for improving tuning, but for example, just like, but if we can sharpen our tuning tool, then we don't need to think about that when we're singing. If we can sharpen our dynamics tool and our timbre tools, if we can learn those skills, then we can use them without thinking when we go into the studio. It's like, if you are really familiar with how a particular paintbrush reacts on a canvas, then you can just go and you can just paint with it. If you're trying to figure out how to mix the colors while you're doing that, then it becomes that's an obstacle. So it's like thinking about the technical aspects of singing and training those where needs be, just so you're fluent, and that's no longer a thing you need to consider. You don't think about walking anymore, but there was a time you did. Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Last question, Natasha.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I had this was a response to Lisa's point before. When you were talking, I just thought, well, even when you become a really experienced singer and you do a lot of sessions, you've only got available to you on the day what's available to you on the day. So, there are elements, sort of vocal hygiene elements that you can take into consideration. Make sure you drink enough water the day before. But if you try and get a good night's sleep, maybe you didn't sleep the night before because you were anxious about the session, and then suddenly you're tired in the session, or you feel like you've got a cold coming on. It's like, so sometimes you've only got access to what you've got access to. So I would say get used to just accepting what you've got right now, not waiting until you feel like you've got it all to capture it, because you might have it all and then have enough night's sleep or get some bad news in the morning, or your body just for some reason isn't cooperating. And those are the conditions you've got to work with that day. And you've got to be able to capture your best out of those conditions. So there isn't kind of like a get to a perfect state where I've got everything. I mean, sometimes there are sessions where everything's firing and it's like, yeah, I'm on peak form. But sometimes that you have all of that available, but you can't. It's not there for you that day for other reasons. So I'd say, like, apart from the things that you can actively do, like make sure you get enough rest. Don't talk unnecessarily during the session. Don't waste your voice talking. Obviously, just mindless chatter, or going out to a football match the night before and then trying to go into a session with an exhausted voice. Like, those things, don't do those things to yourself. But you can even do all of that prep and then still other things are just not there on the day. So it's kind of like you're always just only working with what you've got now. So why not just accept what you've got now, as in, like, you right now? Like, record what you've got now because it's worthy, and listen to it and then move on from that. So I just wanted to say that to you.
It's so helpful. I think it's so easy to get into that again because it's so vulnerable and so raw and so naked beyond naked. So thanks, guys.
The word album. Sometimes we're making an album of music. Think of a photo album. That is a collection, a document of a time. And it's just the same with a record. It's a document of a time. And there'll be something special and unique about that. And those imperfections and those vulnerabilities that you hear there, they're part of you then. And they're kind of special. And they're okay. Let's wrap it up here, folks. It's been a privilege to have this time with you all and your amazing questions. Thank you so much for coming along. I hope you will all become part of this TRE PKA community if you've not already, because there's going to be lots of really valuable things coming up. In 2 weeks' time, the webinar is going to be on how to self-release a single successfully. I don't know how to do that, so I'm going to bring in some people who do. if you know anyone, let me know. I will be doing plenty of outreach, and I will find my panel. But that's what we're doing, because I know that's a good subject. I know you want to know it. I want to know it. So I'm in a good position to ask the questions. That's what's going to be on in 2 weeks' time. And on Monday, we're doing a mixed clinic with someone else from the community. So if you want to just come in and see how we work with him to move his mix forward and get a bit of an insight into someone else's creativity, come along to that. It's really interesting to see some other people's sort of creative processes and so on. So thank you all so much for coming along. And Laura, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and counsel and your bright, beautiful energy with us today.
Thank you for having me, Nick. This was so fun. Thank you, everyone, for staying so long and being awesome.
All right. Love you all. Keep in touch.
Bye.
Ciao.